there, and welcome back to another Miraculous Ladybug Season 6 video. And today we're going to be talking about the latest episode to drop, Episode 3, Sublimation. Originally, when this episode was first announced with the title, I think all of us assumed it was going to have something to do with Mark and the Rooster Miraculous. It doesn't though. Instead it revolves around a girl named Sublime. A truly silly name, but it is what it is. Yeah, I was pretty hyped going into this episode. I know in the comments of the last video there was a lot of discontent surrounding the return of the show. A lot of people don't like the new animation style, some people didn't like the story direction. I actually rather liked the episode myself, to tell you the truth. Just a lot of fun for me. This episode though, I think it had me slightly more mixed. I don't dislike it, but at the same time it didn't hit the same, and fell into some of those lazy old Miraculous tropes. So I suppose we'd better begin. We start off the episode following Marinette and Alia, as Marinette goes full stalker on Adrian and his new running buddy, Sublime. Despite the fact that she's actually dating Adrian and that by all accounts he's a stand-up guy who wouldn't cheat or lie, the fact that he has a running buddy has clearly spooked her. She previously asked him about it and what they talk about when they're running, but he simply told her they quietly run together and they don't talk. Marinette has a choice. Trust her boyfriend or creepily stalk. We all know what choice she's going to make. I love how disappointed Alia is as well. I feel the same. I'll be honest, my first reaction to this was just annoyance at the writing. Seriously, are we back to this sort of thing already? I don't mind Marinette being wacky, weird, and clumsy. Why's she always got to be a stalker, man? Why? In order to cope with her extreme crazy jealousy and paranoia, Marinette has gone full-on serial killer map on Sublime's whole life. I will admit, this person does seem extremely talented, eh? 5 languages, para-athletic gold medals, massively popular and skilled at seemingly everything she does. I mean, with this resume, I kind of get why Marinette might feel a bit inadequate, my god. Still though, cool it with the weirdo behaviour, please and thank you. At a certain point, it's not even funny anymore. For me, this scene just wasn't. At least until Alia straight up backs away slowly and pieces out, with Tiki following her and begging her to come back and talk some sense into Marinette. Alia knows better though. There's no reasoning with somebody so lost in the sauce. She needs to let her hit that rock bottom point of humiliation, because what else can you do? Okay, so like I said, the stalker stuff originally in her bedroom, not really all that funny, mostly just sad. The next scene though is ridiculous. I do feel the show has really upped that sense of pantomime with how Marinette's behaving. Not even in what she says, but her physicality. I mean, she's hiding in the bakery waiting for this girl, and then she slips out and follows her using the extremely exaggerated Looney Tunes tiptoes. You could add a sound effect to these things, and it wouldn't feel out of place with how she's behaving. She stalks her throughout the school, with Tiki doing her best to talk her down from the edge, questioning whether this is truly the best way to become friends with Sublime. So, once again, that name's just a shocker. Straight up bad name that sounds out of place in this world. Sorry if your name's Sublime in real life, I just think it's a whack name. What were the parents thinking here? Marinette follows her into the locker room to try to find a way to play the hero and help Sublime out to try to break the ice, thinking that when she drops her books, she can swoop in to help her and look impressive, only to see Sublime stand on the books to feed some baby birds she's looking after above the lockers. So her first attempt is foiled. Also, who the hell just has baby birds living on top of their locker? Wouldn't it make sense to take them home if they have no mother bird to care for them? Anyway, this plan fails. Marinette almost knocks herself out trying to escape. She then follows Sublime down to a little lunch area, where she notices that Sublime doesn't have any chopsticks for her sushi, so like a good Samaritan, off she goes to try to get some, only for Sublime to foil her once again by using her hairpin thingies. I don't know, I don't accessorize much. Next up, it seems that the broadcasting deal with Disney has led to a crossover between worlds, as Sublime is clearly a Disney princess, playing her harp to all these various different animals. We have a sheep, a goat, a cat, ducks, chickens, turtles, and more. Just chilling with her listening to her song. Seriously, where is this school set? The 100-acre wood? Why are all these woodland creatures just inside the school? Isn't this the same building that Marinette and co. all used to go to school in? Didn't they graduate from here? Was this explained in the previous season and I've just forgotten? Or is this more of an episode 1 query that we have to wait for? Regardless, her harp string breaks and Marinette sees her moment, but bad luck because Sublime plucks her own hair and ties it in place of a string. Somehow, this works. Not to be that guy, but this is so ridiculous. Aren't harp strings in this day and age made of nylon, or metal, or if you're old school, catgut or wire? They are a much harder material. A single taut hair would snap when you pull it like a musical string. Plus, even if it did survive, wouldn't it sound completely different to all the other strings because it's a different material? Not to mention, if Marinette managed to give her the string, it wouldn't work anyway, as she clearly took a guitar string from the music class, not a harp string. Pretty sure there's a difference in thickness and length, etc. Of course, None of this matters, as like we said before, Sublime is clearly a Disney princess and uses her hair to replicate the exact note she needs. She didn't even seem to tune it, just straight into it with great success, to the point that she enchants all the animals with the music. Is it just me, or is this episode completely different in style to usual? A lot more wacky, out there sort of stuff. Slapstick, straight up Disney magic. I wouldn't say it's bad. I actually find it rather amusing, to tell you the truth. It's just something I've noticed. We skip ahead in time to where Sublime's hanging out with Adrian and gets a call from her dad that her trial's been moved up, and so she has to leave. So she asks Adrian to pick up her homework for her before asking about Marinette, who she notices has been stalking her all morning. This was very refreshing. Usually it does seem like people are just completely oblivious to Marinette's antics. Yes, her friends notice because they're clearly looking for it, but it was nice to see her weirdness noticed by somebody who makes it clear that it is weird. What does she say when Adrian's trying to explain why she only acts like a weirdo because she wants to be friends? Oh, that's right. How unique. Regardless, she tells Adrian he should set up a meeting of some kind, and then she walks away, prompting Marinette to panic and run, carrying a huge potted plant alongside her. Once again, we're going with the Looney Tunes style, her pretty much pulling a roadrunner and leaving a dust cloud behind her. Man, this episode feels so different to Illustrator. I'm starting to think it's not a good thing though. Once again, Marinette goes insane and decides she's going to go to this athletic trial because she thinks Sublime is angry with her and will have stopped being friends with Adrian because of that. She rants about it to the point that Tiki is just looking sad and freaked out. Like, it started off annoying in the episode, sort of like, how are we back here again? Then it became a bit funny with all the random antics and how Sublime just managed to be so perfect that none of Marinette's plans would work. But here it circled back to seriously, the major inciting event of episode 3 of the new era is Marinette being a full weirdo again. I could understand if we were 18 episodes deep and they were running on fumes in the writer's room, but this feels lazy. It's episode 3! The production order, I believe, says that they were written in that order. What's going on here? Also, what are we supposed to take away from this? Humor? Yes, it's funny in parts, but unlike previously where everybody would point and laugh and find her antics weird but funny, here we have Alia backing away slowly, and Tiki looking massively upset. What is this trying to show us? That Marinette, the leader of the hero team and most important character in the show with the most responsibilities, is just genuinely mentally unwell? It's just odd. It's weird writing. I don't understand what's going on. For me, it's Sublime's story where the episode shines the most. We see that she has a close bond with her dad and that he dotes on her and helps her out whenever he can, whilst her mum really sucks and gives her the extreme tough love treatment. Can't imagine why they got divorced based on this, can you? At the same time as all of this is going on, Marinette turns up on her scooter and for some reason she's bought the pot plant. I'm gonna go out on a limb. This is the weirdest she's ever been. In the locker room, Sublime changes her normal walking legs to her special running blades, with a cute little message from her dad added to one. Marinette, of course, is still here being a weirdo, lurking outside the change rooms, and decides she should go in there to talk to Sublime despite Tiki's protests. In the meantime, we see some random person sit down in the stands of the stadium with a little notepad, and that the trial that Sublime's undertaking is apparently to get sponsored by Bob Roth. I have no idea why they would want this guy to represent her as an athlete. He seems to lack any sort of understanding about sports, thinking the point of the gold medal is that it's made of gold and thus is worth money. Since she won a symbolic gold medal, it apparently doesn't count for him and thus he doesn't care. What? What is this? How can one man be so dumb? Also, he questions her marketing strategy of her being the best. Isn't that what most famous sportsmen are known for, being the best? Sure, after you hit that top tier, having a personality lets you go the extra mile. But it's very rare for a player or sports person that's high on personality, but mid in terms of skill, is ever going to get the big bucks. On top of that, why aren't they just trying to get her a proper sports agent or whatever to sponsor her? One that understands brand endorsements for athletes and all that jazz. If she's as good as claimed, surely they'd be interested. For somebody who pressures her daughter to be perfect at all times, this is a massive fail from Mum. Then she tells Roth that it will be a proper gold medal at the World Championships, and so Roth agrees to stay for the trial, and also says his payment will be keeping the gold medal for himself. And she agrees to this, by the way. Then she shits all over her ex-husband when he tries to stick up for their daughter and calls him a failure. Charming woman. Back in the locker room, Marinette just keeps being weird, man. It's gone on too long. Almost half the episode's gone by and she's getting more and more unhinged. I'll admit on my first watch through, I actually found a lot of this, well, not necessarily funny, but, nose exhale funny. On a rewatch, it's very grating though. She first thinks that since Sublime's prosthetic legs are on the bench, she must have been vaporized by an akumatized villain and nearly suits up. But when Tiki tells her she's probably just in the bathroom, she barges in there! Consent workshop time, huh? Sure, just head into the bathrooms. That's not weird at all. This is getting very old. Sublime then comes out and Marinette hides, and Sublime gives this really intense speech into the mirror, clearly directed at herself and her anxieties, but Marinette believes the hatred and vitriol was directed at her, and that Sublime is in love with Adrian. Oh, they're killing me here. I will admit though, the next part where Sublime comes back for a water bottle, and Marinette has dressed up as an akumatized villain, that was actually very funny, especially when Sublime just walks past her and tells her to stay there, not to follow her. They'll talk afterwards. Oh, that was actually good. When the fandom complained about Marinette's creepiness, I figured if the writing team was ever going to address it, they would simply, write it out of the story and move her character into other things. Instead, they've kept the trait, and instead now they've made every other character far more aware of it, and disturbed by it, they view it as strange. Even Adrian! Do they think this is how you write a compelling protagonist? She's acting like she's escaped from the asylum. But yeah, this whole Soapinator thing, it was actually funny, and it sort of saved the episode. Gets way less weird from here on out. In order to try to sell the lie that she was akumatized, Marinette decides she's going to become Ladybug to try to convince Sublime that it was all legit. A truly terrible idea, but what can you do? So this takes us to the trial. Sublime's obviously nervous, and so her dad tries to cheer her up by telling her that it's okay not to succeed all the time, and that you have the right to choose. Mum, on the other hand, decides to be a total cow and calls him a loser, and that she shouldn't listen to him, treating her not as her daughter, but as a champion. Damn, this character sucks. She does not deserve her kid. And why does she keep shitting on this poor dude? You already left him. Isn't that enough? This lady's quickly become one of my most hated characters of all time. So she runs the race, only for Ladybug to swoop in and cause her to stumble and fall, which somehow it breaks her prosthetics. I figured that a prosthetic running blade made for athletic competition would probably be able to handle somebody abruptly trying to slow down. It wouldn't just shatter. I'm not claiming to be an expert, but I feel like you wouldn't have a para-athletics at an elite level if the technology couldn't support it. This plot point just doesn't really make that much sense. Sublime's all sad, but it's also very nice, and it makes Ladybug feel very bad about everything. Not only did she misinterpret everything, but she lost the sponsorship, and she broke the leg, which probably cost thousands of dollars and took months to make. Whoops. Of course, Roth leaves, which in turn gets the mum akumatized into Sublime, the villain who makes everybody the best version of themselves. Great little scene here with Lila. I love how there's so much of a pronounced difference in how she interacts with her compared to the little girl. Here she sort of gives, what's her name? The power in their dynamic. She's sweet-talking her. She's playing into her ambition and arrogance, as opposed to being more imposing and forceful with the little girl. So as power sets go, Sublimations isn't all that cruel or anything. It makes you the best version of yourself, whatever that may mean. Feels very vague and open to interpretation, doesn't it? So the battle between Sublimation and Ladybug begins, with the opening section of the stadium mostly just being Ladybug dodging and blocking attacks, whilst trying to talk her down. Quite interestingly, Ladybug is decisively defeated in this first clash, being hammer-tossed out of the stadium completely, allowing Sublimation to perfect her ex-husband. This perfect version no longer offers the shoulder to cry on for Sublime, and is perfectly sure that she'll be able to handle any challenge. Not sure why this guy gets perfected, whilst nothing happens to Ladybug later on, but oh well. Sublimation then decides that now she needs to go and find Bob Roth to secure his sponsorship for her daughter, and so off she goes, whilst Ladybug recovers after being tossed into and crushed by a random stack of metal pipes. Sublimation arrives to threaten Bob, and whilst Bob is a very obvious turd who deserves everything bad that ever happens to him, I still felt like it was pretty badass for him to hold firm and tell her to get bent. For the second time, Sublimation overcomes Ladybug, this time by getting in her head and making her feel like a bad hero for what she did to Sublime, before giving her a big punch and escaping. Man, Marinette's just having a rough episode, hey? Ladybug gives Cat Noir a call, and he jumps into action, arriving just in time to beat up Sublimation a little bit and save Bob Roth. Honestly though, he doesn't really deserve it, does he? Dude spends the whole time mocking the heroes for not being paid and thus being exploited. Cat Noir's right. Hard to call somebody a villain if their quest is to make Bob a better person. Highlight of the episode is when Cat Noir puts him in the garbage bin. It's what he deserves. The battle continues and, yeah, it's pretty basic hand-to-hand combat. Nothing really to write home about. It's a rooftop battle that we've seen a million times before. Whilst Cat Noir fights, Ladybug uses her lucky charm, which brings up a compact mirror. Surprisingly, the solution to the first part of the battle comes through Cat Noir telling Ladybug that Sublimation is powerless against her because she can't make a better version of Ladybug. It's not possible. So Ladybug allows her to hit her, same with Cat Noir, and apparently they were just right, and they are the perfect versions of themselves, can't be improved. Yeah, I'll just say doubtful. That felt very plot armory to me. So Lila uses a fresh power to shoot out anti-Kumas, which I think turn off the hero's powers. Of course, Cat Noir gets hit here, and then Ladybug smashes the object and cleanses the Akuma. They called it an Ultra Kuma, but that's a stupid name. We've called it an Akuma for close to 10 years. I'm not changing now. Same with when they'd say Mega Kuma. It's not happening. Stop trying to make it happen. It's an Akuma. Ladybug realizes that she can't fix anything that was destroyed by Sublimation with her lucky charm, because Sublimation did no damage. The damage was caused by the true villain of the story, Ladybug. What a plot twist! So Ladybug returns to the stadium to fix things herself. So I guess lucky charms can just reverse any damage then. It's rather unclear. Ladybug gives the mum a charm, and apparently all's forgiven. The mum was a nasty piece of work. I'd go as far to say as abusive. You know, perhaps controversial, but she seemed the type. She made everybody miserable, but now it's all good because she's vaguely sorry and she'll stand up for her daughter. So they reject Bob, and her and Marinette become friends. Hooray! Then we get a post-credit scene where Tomoe becomes a sponsor for Sublime since they're both disabled, and she feels a sort of kinship there. She has a very nice house, I gotta say. And this also makes me feel that she and Lila are already on the same team. I think the episode tries to imply that the person in the stands and at the restaurant in Illustrator was actually Lila. But I think it might actually just be a random goon working for Tomoe who then contacts Lila when the target becomes available. It makes more sense to me. Because wouldn't someone have seen Lila transform, you know, like at the restaurant? We'll have to wait and see though. So Sublime's a cool character. Hope there's more of her going forward. Legit feels like a Chloe What If character though, down to the dynamic with her parents. Her part of the episode was a lot of fun. The Marinette stuff though, it was good in isolation and there were some funny bits. I'll admit that. But this whole thing where she realizes that she was being very toxic as a person, it felt like a storyline that fits more in earlier seasons, something that should have been addressed then. You don't want your main protagonist still being this way and having storylines like this in season 6, do you? I don't know, a little bit shabby on the writing front today. And so with all that being said, that's the end of the episode, and these have all been my opinions, and I'd like to hear yours. What did you think of this episode? Did you like it? Hate it? Anything you'd like to add? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.